Hi, Dr. Suzanne here. Welcome back. This is part two of my series on Pompeii and the history of understanding society and sexuality and how it relates to where we are today in society. So this particular episode, this part, will be about the family, like how society operated. Because if we take a look at, if we want to understand how um, the sexuality was here in Pompeii, we have to understand society. So I'm going to turn the camera around here actually, because behind me, the first thing I want to show you is what was called the palestra. So this was a large gym where the youth, a gym for practicing gymnasium was very important in Pompeii in this era of time. And just to remind you, the eruption happened in the year 79, Mount Vesuvius, and was completely covered with up to 20 feet of volcanic ash that came down at speeds, is what I read, like 100 miles an hour. So it literally just came and blanketed this whole city and froze it in time for about 1,500 years. So I want to bring to your attention the trees. If you notice these actually were I don't know, the word isn't really petrified, but they are replications of the trees that were, whether they're located here, but these are trees, and this whole area, like I said, is where the youth, and it's also where the gladiators. So behind there is the amphitheater, and that amphitheater came before the Roman, about 160 years before the one that is most famous, which is in Rome. And the Roman one housed like three, four times larger. It housed 60 to 80. Let me turn the camera around. What am I doing here? Oh, it's my face. Sorry. Sorry. It housed 60 to 80,000 people, spectators, while this one here housed 20,000. So this one was built like in the year 80, 80 BC, and it was about 100 years later in 79 AD, after, death, after Jesus's death. That's what the BC is, before Christ, and then AD, I don't know, it stands for something in Latin, but technically that's what we live in now, is 2025, which is 2025 years AD, after Jesus's death. So in the year, I'm going to say 59, just before, like 20 some years before the eruption, there was a huge fight. A gladiator, like the spectators got involved in a big brawl over a gladiator fight, and they put a 10-year ban on gladiator fighting here in the amphitheater of Pompeii. So what I want to take you on now is there's an exhibition here of women, and this will tell us about the life of society, like how women in society functioned, the roles of women, children, like how society functioned. And I will say one thing that surprised me, because I've already walked through here. I'm going back now through the exit, and there is music that's playing, and there's a video that's playing. There's the cast of a woman, an anonymous woman whose body was destroyed. Basically, she got, the volcanic ash covered her, and what would happen? The body would decompose, and um, it would leave like space where they could fill the space, and prepare like a plaster of what the actual body was. And in this particular, which is the end, which is going to be the beginning, I'll share with you. It's hard to see, actually, because she's obviously in pain, and it's her actual teeth of when she was, people were trying to escape this incredible volcano, all the ash, the lava that was flowing extremely rapidly and thick, and covered this entire, it covered everything. All this was completely underground for 1,500 years. All right, so let's go inside. Part of the time I'm going to be silent, and I'm just going to show the camera to you. And when there is something I want to say, I will share it with you. because there will be some things, some points that I want to tell, but let's get inside. Hopefully they'll let me in. This is these were the rings that she was wearing. The rings and the bracelets. Look at her toes, how they're curled from the pain that she's in. Clearly her body, I mean, look at her mouth. Clearly she was in incredible pain when this volcanic lava covered her body. And just here, you know, to go through the life of how they were living, we're going to see dishes and plates and things that look very similar to what we see in our life today. These two figures were only this. She is a priestess. They had described her as a priestess because she's what she's holding. There was laurel, and she was only found. These two were only discovered in July of 2024 in Porto Sarno necropolis, which is like just outside of Pompeii, and they were of the elite. So one of the signs of her being a priestess was based on her attributes of the springs of laurel and her jewelry. You see her necklace and what she's wearing. So, and they were of the elite. You can see the shoes, the kind of shoes they were wearing, or what was on his feet. But it's kind of cool that they were only discovered last year. And here, everyday life, this talked about grooming, like how you can see her hair is being groomed here. I've got a little bit of light coming in. Serving, this is echoes of women ritualistic practices. They were found in the figurative works. And these are some frescoes from some frescoes. Learning was very important in society, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Here, I'm just going to go through this area, and here's a figure of a woman. Obviously, part of her head is just a female statue. This area is where there's a film going on inside of Pompeii, which I'll get to. We'll be exploring more of that. And here, the women's work, and it says here, among the women, among the professions that women could practice outside of domestic walls were medical science, and it was born out of a spatula bearing the name sperita, where there were surgical instruments and various utensils of all types. So here you see, I don't even know, like little hands and just interesting things here. These were amulets. It's in Italian here. They sometimes supplied potions and infusions for healing, and that overlapped with medicine and magic. Like there was an overlap of medicine and what was described as magic. So because there was a belief in goddesses, and here Pompeii, the beautiful wife of Nero, the woman depicted in this portrait, no longer very young, considered not very attractive. I don't know if they're talking about that or this, but let's continue on because that doesn't really match. But this woman here, they even found that the color of her hair still existed. Here you see the red, and look at the way, the detail in her hair. Very, very, very detailed. So women did spend a lot of time grooming themselves at this time. Grooming was a very important part of society. And then we talk about here the spheres of female power. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of dive into what was permitted and what was not permitted. Here we talk about prostitution. So here we can read, the streets of Pompeii were frequented by women and boys of boys, mind you,